Hi, my name is Evan McLaughlin. I'm doing my analysis on the site at 880 Shoppers Way, which is just outside Washington, D.C., just off of I-495. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into talking about macroeconomics as well as my site analysis. Prince George's County, where our site is located, is the second largest suburb outside of D.C., approximately 900,000 residents. It's one of the most affluent counties in the country, top 5% in income, and percentage of residents with income in excess of $100,000 per year. Features most of the major transportation routes throughout the area. 5 of the 6 metro lines, MARC trains, I-495, 5095 all run through Prince George's County. There's also the Purple Line, which is a above-ground light rail that is planned to run from Bethesda, Maryland, and Montgomery County through Prince George's County into and terminate at New Carrollton Metro Station, and that's anticipated to be completed in 2022. PG County actually has more projects in the pipeline than both Baltimore and Montgomery County, which you would consider the more historically active development areas. In terms of the site itself, there's a rendering there of the $650 million teaching hospital planned for the site, which, as some of the other folks have talked about, is projected to provide, roughly $3 to $4 billion of economic activity. The site itself is accessible via metro. The Largo Town Center metro station is the terminus of both the Silver and Blue Line. I-495 runs directly west of the site. Maryland 214 runs south of the site as well. Schools in Prince George's County and around the site are consistently ranked well when you look at them comparatively to national averages. Now, when you compare them to Montgomery and Fairfax County, they're not going to appear as favorable, but again, those are a couple of the best school districts in the entire country. Some things to consider in terms of competition. WMATA is selling a 6.9 acre site southwest of the Largo Town Center, as well as the proximity to the picture that I have there is of the Ascend Apollo, which is a residential development, 500 units, potential for up to 1,500. The site's proximity to Largo Town Center, Largo Plaza, and Woodmore Town Center, which are some of the larger retail centers in the area, as well as, I spoke about earlier, New Carrollton, which is the busiest transit hub in Prince George's County, has a MARC station, Amtrak station, all of that. So those are some of the competition that are directly adjacent to our site. So let's jump into the office analysis. The office inventory hasn't really changed over the last 20 years. In fact, there's been no growth over the last 5. The market as a whole is 1.9 million square feet of office. 80% of the office product is greater than 25 years old, and 60% is greater than 35 years old. So it's an aging inventory. Suburban Maryland created 3,500 jobs over the last 12 months, 2,100 of those being in professional and business services, which is really that office-intensive type of category. So using a metric of 180 square feet per user, or new employee, new job, I come up with 630,000 square feet of new demand being created from those 3,500 jobs. So now looking at vacancy. Although I'm saying vacancy is stabilizing around 12% because it has been trending down over the last 12 months. The 5-year average is 13.5%. In the broader suburban Maryland market, the vacancy is 17.1%. So from a vacancy perspective, the Landover submarket appears to be relatively strong. However, when you drill into that number, you'll see that for those office products greater than 35 years old, vacancy is 3.3%. Office products greater than 25 years old, vacancy is 9.9%. And the real key here is for those office products less than 15 years old, the vacancy rate is 24.4%. So vacancy is much higher in those newer products, which could be because those older office buildings were single-user build-to-suits and the newer products are more of the traditional multi-user environment. And so it's a little more challenging in this office market to have those spaces leased up. There's 1.1 million square feet of planned proposed pipeline in terms of office product, with about 450,000 of that representing medical uses. The absorption has actually been negative over the last 12 months, negative 24,000 feet. and the 5-year average for the submarket is only $15,000 per year. So when I look at the office analysis, I determined this was a challenging market to develop new space. There's an outdated inventory, high vacancy when you focus in on those newer products, poor absorption trends both historically and over the last 12 months. So my conclusion is it's not justifiable given all those characteristics and the existing pipeline to develop new office space. Looking at the residential. So residential, also from an inventory perspective, has been flat, 1% annualized growth, 70% of the product built before 1970. Vacancy for the residential market has been declining over the past 12 months, and rent growth has been strong. It's been strongest in the studio and 3-bedroom unit types. Studios, 5-year rent growth is 6.3%, and over just the last year, rents have grown 21.3%. And for 3 bedrooms, 5-year growth is 3%, and 1-year growth is a more modest 5.3%, which is still strong. And both of those product types in terms of rent growth are growing faster and at a greater pace than 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom unit types. The existing construction pipeline is 681 planned or proposed units, with, again, I mentioned earlier, the Ascend bringing as many as 1,500 units to market. Absorption over the last 12 months, 253 units, which is 60% above the 5-year average of 157 units. So absorption has been very strong, both historically and over the last 12 months. Zoning in on population and household growth, each are expected to grow about 5% over the next 5 years. So from a population perspective, that's 1,000 new persons each year. 19.6% of the population in Prince George's County is between the ages of 21 to 34, prime rental age. So conservatively, that represents 200 new renters each year entering the market. Now, family households represent 67.5% of households, which is also projected to grow about 5% over the next 5 years. That represents 245 new family households annually, and 30% of those, based on the current figures, would be renters. So that's 75 new renters each year entering the market. So those 200 new renters, which are millennial age, would be our users of our apartment product. And the 75 new family renters would be users that would be more interested in either larger apartments or even townhomes. And one of the things I found is that the market mix is heavily weighted towards 2-bedroom and 1-bedroom units, making up 90% of the overall apartment market. 2 bedrooms being 51%, 1 bedrooms being 39%. I feel that's not optimized to capture the appropriate demand growth, demographic characteristics, how they're changing, how they're projected to grow. So with the number of households, both non-family and family, coming to the market over the next 5 years, that represents 1,000 apartment units and 375 townhomes. When you factor in the existing pipeline, my conclusion was that the site could support and the market could support 500 apartment units. Again, primarily studio, junior 1-bedroom, as well as 3-bedroom categories, because I feel there's the mix has not been optimized for the market, or it's no longer the optimal mix. As well as 194 townhomes. Those would be the larger format 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom units that would be more geared towards the families. Turning now to retail. Retail within Prince George's County has changed a lot. It's a very robust retail landscape, much more robust than it was maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago even. There's the first Whole Foods in PG County, first Nordstrom Rack is coming to PG County. They're getting their second Harris Teeter, and the Wegmans that you see there up at Woodmore Town Center is helping to drive sales at that center upwards of $600 per square foot. Prince George's County residents have a strong consumer spending profile and have significant buying power. For neighborhood goods and services, they spend 103% of the national average. And for general merchandise, apparel, other, GAFO, they spend 107% of the average. Not only do they spend above what the national average is, but both of those spending categories are projected to increase over the next 5 years. NGS growing at 9%, and GAFO spending growing at a much higher 29%. There is significant retail competition surrounding the site. You have Largo Town Center there to the southeast, as well as Largo Plaza you have Landover and Woodmore to the north, and some of the smaller centers, Mitchellville Plaza, out to the east. So in terms of capture rates, for NGS I used 31%, F&B 19%, and GAFO 2%. I felt GAFO was the place that had the largest exposure to the competition in the surrounding area, which is why I took that capture rate down as low as I did. So based on all this, my conclusion for the retail analysis was that there is 231,000 square feet of total demand that could be supported at the site. 173,000 representing neighborhood goods and services, 52,000 approximately representing F&B. And again, there are F&B options throughout the trade area for this site. However, I felt that those F&B options were more of your middle tier sort of users or tenants. And I think there's a real opportunity here to capture local, unique, different type of food and beverage options that are not available in the trade area. And then GAFO, a modest 6,500 square feet. Again, I just felt there was too much competition in the surrounding existing developments to support a significant amount of additional GAFO at the site. Now, talking about mixed use and finishing up with my recommendations. So I already talked about how both residential and retail can be supported at the site, but I feel that they would complement each other if it is done correctly. Using a town center feel to the site, you can take advantage of the topography of the site because it sits down off of 495. It's surrounded by some trees and some growth that sort of shields the property from that thoroughfare. 200,000 cars coming through that highway every day. To create a town center, you don't really want to feel like you're right on top of a highway, so you can take advantage of the topography and create this walkable, bikeable, pedestrian experience on the site that blends both residential and retail. What you're going to need to do is you're going to have to confront competing sites. Woodmore Town Center to the north, which is already proving itself to be wildly successful, as well as the prolific suburban strip centers that dot the landscape around our site. It's going to require educating the market. This would be a new product or a new concept to PG County, to the Landover submarket, because again, it's suburban strip centers everywhere, as well as the metro site. So it's just going to be helping the market understand, in a market that's traditionally single-family homes, detached dwellings, this town center, Reston, Clarendon type feel. But if it's planned appropriately, you have the opportunity to mix retail and living experiences in an environment that offers residents options in style of living, whether that's apartment, townhome, with corresponding demographically appropriate retail. So you can cluster your apartments, your denser living experience with the types of retail. It's going to be, your bars, your late night restaurants, sort of a more lively scene. And then you can cluster your townhomes, your families with that more of a neighborhood boutique-y shopping type feel, so they kind of speak to each other. And then it also gives folks, kind of like I mentioned earlier, the opportunity that if they come in as a first-time resident living in that studio product, they want that lively feel, and then they can, as they start to build a family and want a bigger unit, they move into that townhome, they can move just a little bit further down the site, start to feel more of a neighborhood, walkable, they can walk out, they can gather in plazas, hang out with their kids, those types of things. And it's going to take a cohesive development, marketing, merchandising, programming plan to make sure that that works, that everything's aligned, and that then you can really achieve what I'm calling that placemaking. Lastly, I think this should be developed in phases, not only just to address any demand or market concerns from a residential retail perspective, but then it preserves the optionality of office. So although office is not recommended immediately, if the residential and retail is successful, it may open the opportunity to create more office, whether that's a Class A, whether it's sort of a boutique-y office product, but then you can really get that live, work, play feel. So if it's developed in phases, potentially later on down the line, you can bring office into the mix as well.